I carried the mug of coffee to the living room, hoping the change of scenery would clear my head. He followed, his steps measured and deliberate, keeping a respectful distance that somehow still felt intimate. I sat down on the couch, wrapping my hands around the mug like it was my last anchor to reality. He stood near the doorway, leaning against the frame as though giving me the choice to set the tone. His eyes never left mine, a quiet confidence radiating from him that both comforted and unnerved me. "I know what you're thinking," he said after a long silence. His voice was low, steady, and impossible to ignore. "Oh, you do?" I replied, attempting to sound casual, though my tone betrayed the storm raging inside me. He nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his lips. "You're overthinking this. You always do." I set the mug down on the table, my fingers trembling. "And what exactly is this to you?" He hesitated, the smile fading as he searched for the right words. "A moment," he said finally. "One that doesn't have to mean more than you want it to." His honesty caught me off guard, and I found myself leaning back, staring at the ceiling as if it held the answers I couldn't find within myself. The weight of his words settled over me, both freeing and terrifying. "I'm not proud of this," I admitted, my voice cracking slightly. "Whatever this is." He moved closer, cautiously, his presence filling the room like a storm cloud ready to break. "You don't have to be proud, you just have to be honest, with yourself, if no one else." The simplicity of his statement struck a nerve, cutting through the chaos in my mind. I turned to look at him, my defenses crumbling as the intensity of his gaze held me captive. "I don't know how to do that," I confessed. "You're doing it now," he replied, his voice soft but unwavering. I shook my head, frustration bubbling to the surface. "It's not that simple." "Maybe it is," he countered, his tone gentle but insistent. "Maybe the hardest part is letting yourself believe it." His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, and I felt the walls I'd built around myself start to crack. I wanted to argue, to push him away, but I couldn't deny the truth in what he was saying. I leaned forward, my elbows resting on my knees as I buried my face in my hands. "I don't know how we got here," I said, my voice muffled. He sat down beside me, leaving just enough space to feel both close and distant. "It doesn't matter how we got here," he said. "What matters is where we go from here." His words were both a comfort and a challenge, and I found myself grappling with the weight of them. The room felt too small, the air too thick, and I knew I couldn't keep running from the truth. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice barely audible. "So am I," he said, his honesty catching me off guard. I turned to look at him, surprised to see vulnerability in his eyes that mirrored my own. The silence between us stretched, heavy with unspoken words and unanswered questions. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't alone in my confusion and fear. "What now?" I asked, the question hanging in the air like a fragile thread. He reached out, his hand brushing against mine in a gesture that was both comforting and electrifying. "Now," he said, "we figure it out together.